Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you could mean the difference between comfortable retirement years and struggling to pay your bills. The Social Security Administration has projections for 2027 that most people aren't talking about yet. And if you're collecting benefits or planning to retire soon, this information could be worth thousands of dollars to you. But here's the catch. Most Americans have no idea what's actually coming, and that lack of knowledge could cost them dearly. And before we go any further, hit that subscribe button right now. I'm serious. This channel exists specifically for people like you who need real, honest information about Social Security, benefits, and the money changes that directly affect your life. If you don't subscribe, you're going to miss critical updates that could literally determine whether you have enough money to live on in the coming years. Turn on notifications too, because the government doesn't send you personal alerts when these changes happen, but I do. This could be the most important subscription you make this year. Now, I need you to stay with me through this entire video. I know it's longer than the usual quick clips you scroll past, but there's a reason. The information I'm sharing today is complicated enough that if you only catch part of it, you might make decisions based on incomplete facts, and that could hurt you financially. I've seen too many people lose out on money they were entitled to simply because they didn't understand the full picture. Don't let that be you. And if you know anyone collecting Social Security, or if you have parents, relatives, or friends who will depend on these benefits, share this video with them after you watch it. This isn't just information, it's financial protection. The more people who understand what's coming in 2027, the better prepared we all are. This channel was created for one simple reason: to give you the truth about government benefits, legal changes, and financial updates that mainstream news either ignores or explains so poorly that regular people can't understand it. I break down complex policy into plain English because you deserve to know what's happening with your money. The government makes these announcements in technical language buried in reports most people never read. I read them for you, and I translate them into information you can actually use. So if you haven't already, subscribe now and become part of a community that stays informed and stays ahead. All right, let's get straight into it, because time is not on our side here. The estimates for Social Security's cost of living adjustment in 2027 are starting to take shape, and what we're seeing is both encouraging and concerning, depending on your situation. We need to talk about this now, not later, because the decisions you make in 2024 and 2025 will directly impact how much money you receive when 2027 rolls around. Here's what's happening. Every year, Social Security benefits are supposed to increase based on inflation. This is called the cost of living adjustment, or COLA. It's designed to make sure your Social Security check keeps up with rising prices so you don't lose purchasing power. Now, you probably remember 2023 when we got a massive 8.7% COLA increase. That was the biggest bump in over 40 years. Then in 2024, it dropped to 3.2%. And for 2025, we're looking at 2.5%. You see the trend? It's going down. But here's where it gets interesting for 2027. Early projections, and I want to be clear, these are estimates, not final numbers, suggest we could see anywhere from a 2% to 3% COLA for 2027. Some analysts are saying it could be even higher depending on what happens with inflation over the next couple of years. Now, I know what you're thinking. 2% to 3% doesn't sound like much, but when you're living on a fixed income, every percentage point matters. We're talking about real money here. Let me put this in perspective. The average Social Security retirement benefit right now is about $1,920 per month. That's roughly $23,000 a year. If we get a 2% COLA in 2027, that's an extra $38 per month, or about $460 per year. If it's 3%, you're looking at $58 per month, or about $690 per year. Now, that might not sound life-changing, but think about what you can do with an extra $500 to $700 annually. That's groceries, that's medication, that's utility bills. For millions of seniors living paycheck to paycheck, that money is critical. But here's what most people don't understand, and this is where it gets serious. The COLA isn't just a simple percentage added to your check. It's calculated based on something called the CPIW, which stands for the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. This is a measurement of inflation that tracks the prices of goods and services. The problem? It doesn't accurately reflect what seniors actually spend their money on. The CPIW measures what working people buy. Seniors spend way more on healthcare, housing, and utilities than the average worker. But healthcare costs have been rising much faster than general inflation. So even though you might get a 2% or 3% COLA, If your medical expenses are going up 5% or 6%, you're actually losing ground. Your check gets bigger, but your purchasing power gets smaller. This is the hidden crisis nobody talks about. And it gets worse. There's something called the Medicare Part B premium that gets deducted directly from your Social Security check. Most people don't realize this, but when Medicare premiums increase, they can eat up most or even all of your COLA increase. Let me give you a real example. Let's say you're getting $1,920 per month in Social Security. The 2027 COLA increases your benefit by 2.5%, giving you an extra $48 per month. Great, right? But if Medicare Part B premiums increase by $45 that same year, which is entirely possible based on historical trends, you're only netting $3 more per month. $3. That's it. This is why you need to pay attention not just to the COLA estimate, but to Medicare premium projections as well. They're interconnected, and together they determine how much money actually hits your bank account every month. Now, who is most affected by all of this? Obviously, current Social Security recipients see the immediate impact. But if you're between 50 and 62 right now, this matters to you too, maybe even more. Here's why. The age at which you claim Social Security has a permanent effect on your monthly benefit amount. If you claim at 62, you get a reduced benefit for life. If you wait until your full retirement age, which is 67 for most people reading this, you get your full benefit. And if you wait until 70, you get an even bigger benefit. Here's where the 2027 COLA estimate becomes really important. Let's say you're 60 years old right now in 2024. You're planning to retire at 67 in 2031. Between now and then, every COLA adjustment builds on itself. If COLA increases are smaller in the coming years, the base amount you start with when you finally claim benefits will be lower than if COLAs are higher. These increases compound over time. A lower COLA in 2027 means a permanently lower starting point for your retirement benefits. Think about it like this. Imagine two people who are both 65 today. One person claimed Social Security at 62 and has been receiving benefits through several years of COLA increases. The other person waited until 65 to claim. The second person gets a higher base amount because they waited, plus they benefit from the COLA increases moving forward. But if the COLA increases are weak, that advantage shrinks. This is why understanding what's coming in 2027 and beyond helps you make better decisions about when to claim. Here's another group that needs to pay attention. People on disability. Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDI, gets the same COLA adjustments as retirement benefits. If you're living on disability, you're often dealing with extra medical costs and limited ability to earn additional income. A weak COLA hits you even harder because you can't just go get a part-time job to make up the difference. You're stuck with whatever the government gives you. And let's talk about Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. This is for people who are elderly, blind, or disabled and have very limited income and resources. SSI recipients are among the most vulnerable Americans. They're living in poverty, often surviving on $900 to $1,000 per month. For them, even a $20 difference in their monthly check is huge. The 2027 COLA will affect SSI just like it affects Social Security, retirement, and disability. These folks are barely scraping by as it is. Now, you might be wondering, why are we talking about 2027 when we're still in 2024? Great question. The answer is planning. The more advance notice you have about what's coming, the better you can prepare. If you know COLA increases are going to be modest over the next few years, you can adjust your retirement plans accordingly. Maybe you decide to work an extra year. Maybe you cut back on expenses now to build up savings. Maybe you reconsider when to claim Social Security to maximize your lifetime benefits. But there's another reason, and this one's more urgent. There are proposals in Congress right now that could change how COLA is calculated. Some lawmakers want to switch from the CPIW to something called the CPIE, which is specifically designed to measure inflation for the elderly. This would likely result in higher COLA increases because it would better reflect the actual costs seniors face, especially healthcare. But there's also a proposal to switch to something called chained CPI, which would lower COLA increases. This would save the government money, but would hurt retirees. Do you see what's happening here? Your future benefits are a political football. Decisions being made right now in Washington will determine whether your Social Security check in 2027 and beyond keeps up with your expenses or leaves you struggling. And most people have no idea these debates are even happening. Let me tell you what happens if we end up with consistently low COLA increases over the next several years. Millions of seniors will fall deeper into poverty. We're already seeing record numbers of elderly Americans who can't afford their prescriptions, can't pay their rent, and are choosing between food and medicine. Low COLAs accelerate that crisis, and once you fall behind, it's nearly impossible to catch up when you're on a fixed income. Here's a real-world scenario. Margaret is 68 years old, receiving $1,850 per month in Social Security. That's her only income. Her rent is $950. Her Medicare premium is $174.70. Her supplemental insurance is another $130. Right there, before she buys a single item of food, she's down to $595.30 per month. That's about $20 per day for food, utilities, transportation, clothing, phone, and everything else. She's already cutting corners everywhere. Now, if her COLA in 2027 is 2%, she gets an extra $37 per month. But if her rent goes up by $50, which is modest, and her Medicare premium goes up by $20, she's actually worse off than before, even with the COLA increase. She's losing ground, and there's nothing she can do about it. Multiply Margaret by millions, and you see the scope of the problem. This isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. This is real people who worked their entire lives, paid into the system, and are now struggling to survive on the benefits they were promised. So what can you do about all this? I'm going to give you practical steps, and I need you to take these seriously. First, if you're not yet collecting Social Security, run the numbers on when to claim. Go to the Social Security website and create a My Social Security account if you don't have one. You can see your estimated benefits at different claiming ages. Factor in modest COLA increases. Assume 2% to 3% per year, and see how that affects your lifetime benefits. For many people, delaying even 1 or 2 years can make a significant difference. Second, plan for healthcare costs separately. Don't assume your COLA will cover rising medical expenses, because history shows it won't. If you're approaching 65, research Medicare supplement plans and Medicare Advantage plans carefully. Understand what you'll pay out of pocket. Build a healthcare buffer in your savings if possible. Third, if you're already collecting benefits, audit your expenses now. I know that's not fun, but it's necessary. Look at every recurring cost and ask yourself if there's a cheaper alternative. Can you refinance your mortgage? Can you reduce your insurance costs? Can you cut unnecessary subscriptions? The less you spend, the further your COLA increase will go. Fourth, stay informed about the political battles over Social Security. Contact your representatives in Congress. Tell them you support switching to the CPIE for more accurate COLA calculations. Tell them you oppose any changes that would reduce benefits. Your voice matters, but only if you use it. Fifth, consider ways to supplement your Social Security income if you're able. Part-time work, selling items you no longer need, rental income if you have extra space, anything that brings in additional money reduces your dependence on COLA increases. I know not everyone can do this, especially if you're dealing with health issues, but if you can, it helps. Sixth, connect with local resources. Many communities have programs for seniors that can help with food costs, utility bills, prescription assistance, and more. You paid taxes your whole life. Don't be too proud to accept help that's available to you. These programs exist for a reason. Seventh, talk to a financial advisor if possible. Many offer free consultations. They can help you strategize about Social Security, claiming required minimum distributions from retirement accounts, tax planning, and more. Sometimes a 1-hour conversation can save you thousands of dollars. And eighth, share information with others. The more people who understand these issues, the more pressure there is on the government to get it right. If everyone just accepts whatever they're given, without question, nothing changes. Now let's talk about what to watch for as we get closer to 2027. The official COLA announcement always comes in October of the year before it takes effect. So the 2027 COLA will be announced in October 2026, but you can track the numbers yourself if you want to estimate what's coming. The Social Security Administration looks at the CPIW for the third quarter, July, August, and September, and compares it to the same period from the previous year. The percentage increase becomes the COLA. You can find CPIW data on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. I know that sounds technical, but it's actually pretty straightforward once you look at it. If you check those numbers quarterly, you can get a rough idea of where COLA is heading long before the official announcement. This gives you time to plan. Right now, in early 2024, inflation has cooled significantly from the peaks we saw in 2022 and early 2023. That's why COLA has been dropping from 8.7% down to 3.2% and now to 2.5%. If inflation stays low and stable, we're probably looking at COLA increases in the 2% to 3% range for the next several years, including 2027. But if something happens to spike inflation again, a war, an energy crisis, supply chain disruptions, whatever, COLA could jump back up. The problem is, high inflation is a double-edged sword. Yes, you get a bigger COLA, but prices are rising faster, which is why the COLA is bigger in the first place. You're not actually better off. In fact, because of the lag time in how COLA is calculated, you're usually worse off during high inflation periods. Prices go up immediately, but your COLA doesn't kick in until the following January. So you're playing catch-up constantly. Here's something else that's critical. Social Security's trust funds are projected to be depleted in the early 2030s. You've probably heard warnings about this. Once the trust funds run dry, Social Security will only be able to pay out what it collects in payroll taxes, which means about 77% to 80% of scheduled benefits. Now, Congress will almost certainly do something before that happens. They can't let Social Security fail, but we don't know what that something will be. They might raise the payroll tax cap. They might increase the retirement age. They might means test benefits, reducing or eliminating them for higher earners. They might cut COLAs. Any combination of these is possible. The point is, the 2027 COLA is happening against the backdrop of a larger crisis in Social Security's financing that adds uncertainty to everything. If you're in your 40s or 50s right now, you need to assume that the Social Security you've been promised might look different by the time you claim it. That's not fear-mongering. That's the reality based on the numbers. It doesn't mean Social Security is going away. It's not, but it might be less generous than current projections suggest. This is why building your own retirement savings is so important. Social Security was never designed to be your only income in retirement. It's supposed to be a foundation that you build on with pensions, 401ks, IRAs, and personal savings. If you're relying entirely on Social Security, you're in a vulnerable position, and modest COLA increases in 2027 and beyond will hurt you. Let me give you one more scenario to drive this home. John is 55 years old. He plans to work until 67 and then claim Social Security. Based on his earnings history, his estimated benefit at 67 is $2,400 per month in today's dollars. But that number assumes COLA increases between now and then. If COLA averages 2.5% per year for the next 12 years, his actual benefit when he claims in 2036 will be about $3,230 per month in future dollars. That sounds good, right? But here's the catch. If inflation also averages 2.5% per year, the purchasing power of that $3,230 in 2036 is the same as $2,400 today. He's not gaining anything in real terms. And if inflation outpaces COLA, which it often does, his purchasing power actually declines. So even though his check is bigger in 2036 than it would be today, he can buy less with it. This is the treadmill that Social Security recipients are on. You get annual increases, but you're just trying to keep up with rising costs. You're not getting ahead. And if you hit a period of high inflation with low COLA, like we saw in the 2010s, you fall behind and you never catch up. Here's why I'm spending so much time on this. Knowledge is power. When you understand how the system works, you can make better decisions. You can plan more effectively. You can advocate for yourself. But when you're in the dark, you're at the mercy of whatever the government decides to give you. And the government is not looking out for your best interests the way you'd hope. Don't get me wrong, Social Security is one of the most successful government programs in history. It's kept millions of seniors out of poverty. But the people making decisions about COLA formulas and benefit calculations are not the ones living on $1-800 a month. They don't feel the impact of their choices the way you do. That's why you have to stay informed and make your voice heard. I want to circle back to something I mentioned earlier about Medicare premiums, because this is absolutely crucial, and it's going to hit a lot of people hard in 2027 if they're not prepared. The standard Medicare Part B premium for 2024 is $174.70 per month. But if you're a higher earner, you pay more through something called IRMA, Income-Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. Here's how it works. If your modified adjusted gross income from 2 years ago was above certain thresholds, you pay a surcharge on top of the standard premium. For 2024, if you're single and you earned more than $103,000 in 2022, or if you're married and you earned more than $206,000, you pay extra. The The surcharge can be hundreds of dollars per month, depending on your income level. Now, why does this matter for 2027? Because if you have a good income year in 2025, maybe you sell a property, take a big distribution from your IRA, convert a traditional IRA to a Roth, or have any other spike in income, you're going to get hit with IRMA in 2027. And that surcharge comes right out of your Social Security check. I've seen people caught completely off guard by this. They make a one-time financial move, forget about it, and then 2 years later, they're wondering why their Social Security check suddenly dropped by $200 or $300 per month. It's IRMA. And once it hits, it lasts for the entire year. You can appeal it if your income has dropped since the year they're looking at, but most people don't know that's an option. So when you're thinking about the 2027 COLA and whether your check is going to be bigger, you also have to think about whether your Medicare premiums are going to be higher. For some people, the COLA increase will be completely wiped out by rising Medicare costs. For others, it might even result in a net decrease in their take-home amount. This is the kind of stuff that makes people furious, and rightfully so. You work your whole life, you pay into Social Security and Medicare, and then when you need it, the system is set up in ways that nickel and dime you. It feels unfair because it is unfair, but being angry doesn't change it. Being informed and planning around it does. All right, let me talk to the people watching this who are not yet retired but who have aging parents. This information is just as important for you. If your parents are on Social Security, they might not fully understand how COLA works or what's coming in 2027. You can help them. Sit down with them and go through their budget. Look at their Social Security statements. Make sure they're not missing out on benefits they're entitled to. A lot of seniors leave money on the table because they don't know what's available. For example, did you know that if your parent is a widow or widower, they might be able to claim survivor benefits and then switch to their own retirement benefit later, or vice versa? This strategy can significantly increase lifetime benefits, but most people have never heard of it. Or did you know that if your parent worked for a railroad, they might have different benefits through the Railroad Retirement Board? Or that if they're a veteran, they might qualify for additional assistance through the VA? There are dozens of these little-known rules and programs. The Social Security Administration doesn't do a great job of publicizing them. It's on you to dig for the information. And if you help your parents maximize their benefits now, it can save you from having to financially support them later. It's a win-win. Here's something else to consider. If the 2027 COLA is on the lower end of projections and your parents are struggling financially, you might need to have some difficult conversations about their living situation. Can they afford to stay in their current home? Would downsizing make sense? Would moving in with family be an option? These are hard topics, but it's better to address them proactively than in a crisis. And please share this video with your parents or anyone you know who's on Social Security. Like I said earlier, this information could literally be worth thousands of dollars. The more people who understand what's happening, the better off we all are. Now, I want to address one more thing before we wrap up, and that's the misinformation floating around about Social Security. You've probably seen posts on social media claiming that Social Security is going bankrupt, or that the government is stealing from the trust fund, or that benefits are being cut immediately. Most of that is exaggerated or outright false. Social Security is not going bankrupt. It's facing a funding shortfall in the 2030s, but that's different from bankruptcy. Even if Congress does nothing, which is unlikely, benefits would be reduced, not eliminated. The trust fund is not being stolen. By law, surplus Social Security taxes are invested in special Treasury bonds. Those bonds earn interest and are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. It's a safe investment, not a theft. But here's the thing. While a lot of the extreme claims are wrong, there are real challenges facing Social Security, and the 2027 COLA is part of that bigger picture. So don't dismiss concerns about Social Security as conspiracy theories, but also don't panic based on misleading headlines. Stick to trusted sources of information, check the Social Security Administration's official website, read reports from nonpartisan research organizations, and subscribe to channels like this one that break down the facts without the hype. All right. We've covered a lot of ground. Let's recap the key points. The estimated COLA for 2027 is looking like 2% to 3% based on current projections, but that could change depending on inflation. For the average Social Security recipient, that's an extra $40 to $60 per month. Not huge, but meaningful when you're on a fixed income. However, rising Medicare premiums, especially Medicare Part B and IRMA surcharges, could eat up most or all of that increase. And because the COLA is based on the CPIW, which doesn't reflect senior spending patterns, you might still lose purchasing power even with the increase.